So hear me out. We all gotta leave this earth, right? We all gotta die. That's one thing for certain about life. So when I die, it is my direct request to you. When you go to social media, post a headshot. I don't want them damn angel wings on my back. Don't put them on my back. I don't want them. I don't want them. Don't hop your ass on Canva, Photoshop, or whatever whack ass app you use to alter photos and put angel wings on me. I will haunt you. I will literally come back and haunt you. Don't do it. And while we're talking about it, don't put me in no clouds, no blue sky. I damn sure don't want that damn staircase to heaven. Nope, don't need it. Tell me something. After I've lived what I hope to be a long life, what I need a staircase to heaven for? What are the wings there for? Why do I need wings and a staircase? I can't just fly into that bitch. Just post a headshot. I have given countless selfies through the years. I have like over 5,000 posts on Instagram. You can find a decent photo. Post that when I was born and when I died. That's it. I don't want no goddamn wings unless they from American Deli. Yo, what's up? This is the Kevin Dwayne podcast, and I am your host, Kevin Dwayne. First things first, thank you guys so much for the turnout on last week's episode. I posted that joint Monday night, and the next morning I checked the analytics, and I was shocked to see how many people listened to it immediately. Like the night that it was posted, it showed about 670 instant downloads. That normally doesn't happen that fast. It usually happens over the course of the week that people kind of come in. But that first night, 600 of you just came in instantly and listened to that shit. I was getting DMs and people asking me about the book I was talking about. And I'm just very pleased with that. Like, thank you guys so much. It's nice to know, like, you guys really fuck with me. Like, that's dope. I'm just not used to the kind of instant listen. It's usually like a slow burn, like every day, a couple hundred people listen. But the fact that 600 of you are locked and loaded the night of, I was just like, yes. And since like the account has been pretty much dormant since I did the Outline podcast a few months ago, it was very apparent in the charts because I'm able to see all of that. So just thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate that. Thank you for the feedback. I'm glad you guys enjoyed the episode of Reset. It just lets me know that I'm doing the right thing by recording this podcast because Lord knows, creativity in a pandemic, it's a whole nother ball game. I was talking to my friend, Jared Hill, a friend of the show, and we were just talking about creating during all that's going on. It's like you can have countless ideas and so many things that you want to execute, but on the flip end, you could totally be depressed and just out of it to the point that you can't get anything done. So it's a very weird space because a lot of us have free time, but we also are trying to process traumas and things that are going on. But anyway, thank you guys so much for showing up. First things first, make sure you take your ass out and vote. We are literally less than a week away from the end of the election. This entire time has been the election. The last day is next week. And the turnout looks good, though. More people have already early voted in America in comparison to people who completely voted in 2016. There's something to be said about that. Also, this conversation about Black people not voting needs to end because we have showed up and showed the fuck out. Like, the polls have been amazing to see. Like, people are lined up for blocks to get their vote in, and it's an early vote. And it takes a lot to leave your job or your home or plan to go do something that is very much important. Like it's so important that we vote, but it still takes a level of effort to make time in your day to go do things, especially with voter suppression and all of the other factors that can get in the way of voting. With me, I wanted to do an absentee vote. I am currently in New York, but I'm still registered to vote in Atlanta, Georgia. So last week, I was waiting for my absentee ballot to come. I put in a request well over a month ago and it hadn't come yet. So I was like, all right, I need to get this done because I'll actually be going to a wedding. I'm so excited. I'm actually going to a family member's wedding this upcoming weekend. And that's a whole nother thing that I can dig into. But I'm just excited to see family. It's a private event because of COVID, but I'm excited to be doing that. But since I'll be there, I won't be able to vote during that time in Georgia. So I was waiting for the absentee ballot to come. So last, I'm going to say Wednesday, one of my roommates was like, hey, are you still going to come to Atlanta to vote? And I was like, you know what? I may have to because my absentee ballot hasn't come. So I went for a run. And during that time, I said, you know what? I need to get this done. And what I don't want to happen is I don't want the ballot to come. And then because of all that's going on with the government and them fucking up all the mailings and all that shit, I didn't want my vote to risk not being counted. So I said, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to fly to Atlanta and vote and come back. And I did just that. I flew out on Wednesday night, stayed the night, woke up the very next morning and went to vote. My voting experience was so damn smooth. Like it was in and out. I've been reading about people waiting hours and I commend you all for doing that. And I was prepared to do so. I was prepared to wait maybe an hour or two to vote if needed be. And I would have stayed in line. I would have done it because it was important, especially if I flew to Atlanta. I mean, I'm not going to fly there, not vote, and then come back. I would have been pissed off. So I'm in Fulton County in Georgia. So I was like, all right, let's get this done. So I went to a library that had early voting. I parked my car at 9:21 a.m., walked in. There was literally no one there except the poll workers. Walked up, signed a little paperwork saying I wouldn't send in my absentee ballot that was already sent to me that I never received. Took my little card, voted for the people that needed to be voted for, printed the sheet out, put it in a little machine, and I was back in my car by 9:31 a.m. I was so impressed at how fast I was able to get in and get out. So did that, flew back to Atlanta the same afternoon. I was back in Atlanta at like 2:00. Why was the absentee ballot on my porch when I got back? I was so like, are you kidding me now? I had a feeling that was going to happen because it's life. Life has a way of life has a way of being funny. I flew all the way to Atlanta to vote, come back, the absentee ballot is there waiting for me. But in my mind, I said, you know what? I had a feeling it was going to happen, but at least I know that I voted. The vote is counted. I got my sticker and my civil duty is completed. So if I can fly from New York to Atlanta to vote and come back and continue my life, you can definitely get your vote in, whether you're mailing it in, whether you're going to the polls or whatever, just do it. It's so important. But thank you all who have already early voted. I truly believe that the listeners of this show, you guys give me early voting vibes. This is not this is not a young ratchet show. This is a more refined ratchet show. You know what I mean? My listener base is very much 25 to 34 years old. Thank you, analytics. So I believe that you guys have already voted. So this is literally, this is just a confirmation of what you've already done. So thank you for that. And I'm very interested to see how next week goes. If you would have talked to me January, February, I would have just said, you know what? Nothing's going to change. That man's going to stay in office. But now I'm feeling a little different after the fucking pandemic and the fucking riots and the protests and all that has happened this year. Shit just might change. So we will see next week, but make sure you go vote. And if you have voted, thank you. So there's that. So on lighter things, I have been a complete slob, honestly. I told you guys I'm on leave, and it's so weird not having obligations. And I have literally been waking up whenever, doing whatever, all fucking day. My sleep schedule is all over the place, and I love it. There's a weird guilt, to be honest with you, because I've been working since I was, I want to say 15 years old. If you count like those old summer camp jobs and shit, I've been working since I was 13. So I'm used to always having some kind of place to be or something to do or money to get, etc. So this is the first time in my life where I am still employed per se, because I have a job to go back to next year, but it's just weird. It's so weird because it's like when you grow up with this idea of having to be productive and having to work, not having to work just kind of, it blows your mind. So I'm enjoying it now. Now, I do think in January, I'll probably find like a little side job or some shit to do, or maybe I'll just do more photography gigs and shit like that, because I mean, that's what I enjoy doing. I do have a couple gigs in November, so that's exciting. So I don't know. It's a weird time. It's a very weird time. And I'm just taking it all in, because fast forward, I'll be back at work and another opportunity may not present itself like this. This feels very once in a lifetime. But all that to say is I've been binging a lot of television. I've been watching all the UPN shows that are now on Netflix. 101 has been a jam for me. So 101, when that show came out in 2001, I was very much in high school. Now, because of my life then, I didn't watch the show in detail the way I'm watching it now. I may have watched season 1, and then somewhere along the line, I just fell off of the show. I just didn't care as much. Maybe I thought it was like beneath me or whatever. But watching it now is interesting because I realized that Brianna's character, Kyla Pratt, need to give Kyla Pratt her things, by the way. Kyla Pratt is a young legend. Mama was in everything. She was in all the damn shows on UPN before she even got on 101. You had Love and Basketball and Dr. Dolittle and all the things that she was in. Kyla Pratt needs her things. Proud Family. Like, Mama put in work. Anywho, I realized that the show was actually a mirror of my exact age at the time. It came out in 2001. The characters were 14 turning 15. I was very much 14 turning 15. They were in their freshman year of high school. So was I. And I was like, oh, wow, this show literally was my high school and first couple years of college, but I couldn't be bothered to watch it when it came out. And I was just really shocked at that. What's even more interesting now, at my current age, I'm the same age as Flex's character, her father. So that blows my mind, seeing him go through the motions of being a father at that age and me thinking like, damn, what would it be like if I was a father of a teenager at this age? What would that be like? Or seeing him get his first couple gray hairs, although I've had my gray hairs for a few years now. But it's just interesting relating to one side versus the other because of time. It's the same with the Parkers. I'm the same age as Nikki Parker as opposed to being the age of Kim. It's just weird. But that's why I love watching things after time has gone by, because you change your mind. Certain characters that you would vibe with before, you don't vibe with the same as you get older. It was very much that way for me in Girlfriends and Sex and the City. Certain characters I cared for got on my nerves. Like, for instance, I love the protagonist of Joan and Carrie growing up. But now watching them, I'm like, oh my God, these people are terrible. Like they make horrible decisions. But back when I was a teenager, it was just like, oh, I totally get it. Why she felt that way. And you look now like, oh, we need to go to therapy. Oh, I get it. And so it's just interesting watching things. But 101, great show. It's funnier than I remember it being. Dwayne is hilarious. Kyla Pratt is hilarious. And it's just a really great show. And the theme song is just a bop. UPN has some of the best theme songs ever. They really did. Like, Black shows in general always have lit ass theme songs, but the Half and Half and 101 get me together. Like Shanice on the 101 and that high note, everything. And then also Melanie Daniels on the Half and Half theme song. Just, they're lit. If I could play them, I would, but I'm not trying to get into copyright and licenses. You guys know what they sound like. You know the lyrics, but they are bop. In fact, tell me some of you guys' favorite theme songs. I probably agree with you. There's some lit ones like Hanging with Mr. Cooper. Family Matters was good because it's nostalgic, but it was kind of like contemporary pop. But because we watched that show every week, it was really, really good. Fresh Prince is obviously a classic. A Different World, the Aretha version was lit. The Boys and Men version was lit. So some shows just have really, 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 really good theme songs. And 101 is one of my favorites. I never skip it. Like when Netflix is like, oh, skip intro, I'm like, girl, you tried it. I will not skip this. I wouldn't skip Girlfriends either. Moesha, I enjoy the 3rd season version of it. I mean, the original is always going to be a bop. Season 2 was okay, or season 2 and 3, but then I think it was when she was a senior in high school is when it changed again. I like that one the most because it had the most dark child-like sound to it, and they kind of refined it in a way that worked. And then when she was in college, I didn't really care for that remix that much. Anyway, all that to say, I've really been enjoying the downtime, being able to watch television shows all day, work out at my leisure, prepare food at home, make dance videos. That's become a thing. And I'm really excited that it's become a thing for me online because I've been dancing since I was a kid. So it's dope to kind of get this reaction to me posting these little goofy throwbacks every week because I do it anyway. So if it's one of those things where it's easy. I get a lot of joy from dancing. So shout out to all of you who have been reposting my videos and tagging them and showing me love. That's super dope. And in a weird way, it works as a segue to what I want to talk about on this week's show. And what I want to discuss is imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is something that a lot of people, especially creatives, deal with. And the definition, which I pulled from Wikipedia because I really enjoyed the way they describe it, is this. Imposter syndrome, also known as imposter phenomenon, fraud syndrome, or imposter experience, is a psychological pattern in which an individual doubts their skills, talents, or accomplishments and has a persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. This thing is so real, especially when being a creative. I was excited, or relieved rather, to know that there was a label for this feeling. Because I remember growing up and feeling like an imposter when a certain talent that I had was being highlighted, especially if I felt like I wasn't worthy to have it highlighted. And it's a very weird space to be in. I felt it the most when I started my photography business back in 2012, because photography wasn't something that I did growing up. And actually, I'll explain that story. I don't know that I've ever talked about this on the show before. I may have. I just don't remember. Half the time, I never remember what I say on this show. And that's kind of scary. But also, I just pray I'm not being problematic because I don't want to be dragged when I'm like in my 60s for something I'm saying now. So I try to walk a thin line so I don't, fuck up. But anywho, so photography. I actually didn't grow up taking photos of everything or trying to develop my eye. I've always just been someone who likes to create things. It's always been an act of expression for me. Okay. So in 2012, still one of the craziest years of my life, a milestone year because it changed so much of who I was and kind of began the journey of making me who I am today. So I had all the shit happen in 2012 to me, and then I decided to move to Atlanta. My cousin, shout out to Jasmine, she flew out to LA to help me drive back to Atlanta. So on our way to Atlanta, we're on a road trip. So when I was driving, we had the music going, we're having a good time. When she was driving, I was either napping or I would just be taking pictures on my phone. Instagram was popping then, it was still fairly new. It was 2012. So Instagram was picking up its popularity. 2011 is when people were kind of getting on there more and more. I believe they finally opened it up to Android users because once upon a time, Android users could not get Instagram. It was only for iPhone users, but whatever, it's cool. And so I was posting pictures on there, not thinking anything of it. And then on a stop, and I'll never forget this, she was like, you should really consider doing photography. She's like, the shots you take are really good. And in my mind, I was very much like, nah, you're gassing me up. These are just basic ass pictures with filters on them. And she's just like, no, like the shots you take, the composition of them, they're really good photos. You should really consider looking into photography. And I was just like, I put it in the back of my mind, like literally hated dust. I was like, nah, I'm not doing that. That's not my lane. Left it alone. So when I got to Atlanta, I was linked to a group of creatives in Atlanta. I was doing my blogging, my YouTube videos, and all of that stuff that I talked about in the last show. And I was linked with them, started hanging out with them. All of them did something, whether it was photography, acting, music, screenwriting. Everybody in that group did something. And I was so impressed by this group. If they felt like my people, I was like, this is my tribe. This is dope. And so within a couple months of just hanging out with them, I started noticing that many of them were using DSLRs for their projects, whether it was photos, whether it was web series or whatever, they were using DSLRs for them. And so after kind of inquiring, I was like, you know what? I want to invest in a camera for my YouTube videos, for the things that I create and the things that I do, the videos and stuff like that. It will be high quality. And that's the way I want to go. So I ended up buying a Canon 60D. And kind of just playing around with it. I remember taking photos, like just photos, and they were like, whatever. Like I didn't understand lighting. I didn't understand any of that shit yet. And I was just kind of playing around with making videos on YouTube and then also just taking photos, just practicing and just trying to figure it all out. And I'll never forget, I went to my barber in Atlanta, he was still a fairly new barber to me. He's been my barber ever since, but I had just met this guy. But I remember being in his chair and just saying, oh yeah, I got this camera. I'm trying to just play around with that and see what I can do, with photography and art and stuff like that. And he was like, oh, that's dope. Cool. Didn't think anything of it. I want to say maybe a month later, if that, he calls me and say, hey, you said you were a photographer. I was like, I didn't say I was a photographer. I said I owned a camera and I'm trying to, figure it out. He was like, yeah. I have a gig for you. Can you come down here now? And I'm like, excuse me? Literally shell shocked. Like, what the fuck? How do you have a gig for me? I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like, I don't, what the hell? And so immediately, this wasn't quite imposter syndrome yet because at this point, my skills were low. I had no skills. I'm like, okay, I know how to point and shoot this bitch, but I definitely wasn't a manual shooter. I was very much a auto shooter. And I'm just like, okay. He's like, well, just come down here anyway. So I went down there. when I tell you I didn't have, it's funny looking back on this. I didn't have a external flash. I didn't have extra lens. I literally had what I bought in that kit. I had the kit lens, the camera. That was it. And I showed up to the shop. We shot at the beauty salon that he worked out of, and it was for a jewelry shoot. And it was the owner of the jewelry. She was just very grateful and was like, "Oh, thank you for coming on short notice. I just want to take pictures of my jewelry and the models who wear it." So we took those photos. It ended up being like a 4-hour shoot. And I'm not going to talk about what I charged. Looking back, I charged so little because I didn't know any better. I had never done a shoot. I didn't plan to be a photographer. I just showed up, made some money that day. I bounced and literally taught myself everything when I got home. When I got home, I was on the University of YouTube. I was on lynda.com, and I was literally learning Photoshop. I was learning how to edit and everything. I did all those photos, got them back to the client. She loved them. And then my business was born that day. That point forward, I started getting word of mouth recommendations. The guy I worked with, he and I became good friends. And so he knew that I was reliable. So he started hiring me for everything he needed done, whether it was tutorials for cutting hair, whether it was beauty shows or whatever. I became his go-to guy for years based on that one experience. And then as I kept meeting people, they would recommend me to other people. So next thing you know, I had started a whole photography business. I had started learning about equipment. I started learning all of these things. So at this point, I'm starting to make money off of photography. And then it got to a point where I was getting like really, really good gigs. But then imposter syndrome started really kicking in for me as the gigs got bigger. I remember doing my first wedding and being like, am I even capable of doing this? And mind you, the first wedding I did was in 2015. I want to say November 2015. That was definitely 2.5 years of me doing photography, but I remember feeling like I wasn't capable. I'm like, a wedding is a very big deal. There's a lot of fleeting moments, and I just don't want to deal with that pressure. But what's funny is the bride talked me into it. Honestly, every wedding I've done, the bride and groom have talked me into it because I'm not a wedding guy. I do them if I care about the couple, but I feel like it's too much. I'm more of a corporate event kind of guy because I feel like it's the same kind of money, but the output is just way different. Weddings are a lot of work. They are beyond a lot of work. So my imposter syndrome started really kicking in when I started doing weddings and things like that. Cause I'm like, there's better photographers out there. There's people who literally went to school for this. I'm self-taught. I'm not worthy. Something's going to happen on the set or at the church, and someone's going to be like, you're not a real photographer. You're faking, you're pretending. Like, this would literally cause me anxiety, but I would still show up. And you know what? When I showed up, it went fine. It went great. It went better than expected. I would have these great photos, this great turnout, and I would really start to blossom. So then once I got over my fear of weddings, I mean, I still don't fuck with weddings like that. I mean, I do them if I know the couple, but for like strangers, nah, it's too much. But I started doing more weddings and doing things like that, and it was fine. And then there was an opportunity where a huge corporation reached out to me to do their award shows. They had like award shows for their group. So I started, this fucking Fortune 100 company wanted me to do their award show. My mind is still blown by this because I did it 2 years in a row. I did this shit 2 years in a row. And the little videos you play for your nominees, I filmed those. I did the day of the event. I did a photo booth for the people that were there. Then I started doing baking events with Sweet Fest. I started teaching photography classes. And through every step, there was a level of feeling like, do I deserve to be here? And it never left, but I never let anxiety get the best of me to where I turned anything down. I still showed up in spite of feeling like I didn't belong. And I think that's how imposter syndrome works. You definitely have, like, at this point, it's been 8 years. So the skill level's there. I'm very sure of my skills as a photographer. I know what I'm doing. But throughout the years, there have been moments of being like, oh my God, I feel like a fraud. But some things I did to help along with said syndrome were, number one, always have a good support system around you. Have people around who will validate what you've done. Because it's very much, for me, I'm only as good as the last gig I've had. So if I go a long time without working, I do feel a little, I can get a little off track. And sometimes I have to pull out my portfolio and say, listen, you did all of this stuff. At this point, I've done countless engagements and events and weddings, and I've done so much that my portfolio is huge. And every now and then I have to just check those receipts and say, listen, Kevin, you did this. All of these clients you had were happy, and they're reoccurring clients. They come back to you over and over and over again. That has to mean something to you. So check your receipts, your portfolio, have a good support system, people who will validate you and remind you of who you are. Also, keep showing up. Even when you're afraid, even when you have high anxiety, there are some events that bring me so much anxiety. The corporate events, because it's just so many people there and it's just such a huge client. And then also weddings, because weddings are very special and you just don't want to mess up anyone's special day. And I haven't done it as of yet. Thank God. I'll knock on some wood in a moment, but that's how I get through it. And I realize I'm not the only one who suffers through this. So if you suffer through having imposter syndrome, you're not alone. You definitely belong where you are. I do believe in destiny. I do believe that things happen to us to get us where we need to be. And if you are meant to do something, you're going to do it. And then if something's for you, you're going to get it. So regardless of your skill level or where you feel you should be, do that shit anyway. Don't worry about the outcome. Don't worry about negative feedback. Don't worry about any of that, because at the end of the day, it doesn't actually matter. It doesn't. Do what you're destined to do and don't be afraid of it. And if you're afraid, do it anyway, because the reward of doing something, even when you're afraid of doing it and it goes well, that high you get is like no other. And one thing about me is every time I fought the urge to stay stagnant and not go for what I want, it sucked. But when I actually gone past that and done stuff in spite of how I feel, it's just, I don't know. I think about all the happy clients I've had. I think about all of the interesting journeys I've been on because of art and because of creativity. And even with this podcast, I have moments of being like, ain't nobody listening to this damn show. And then, like I said, last week, you guys showed up like immediately to listen to it. And it just made me feel like, damn, like, no, like I do have purpose. I do have meaning. I belong here. And yeah, you belong. And also another thing, I don't give a damn if you're doing an OnlyFans, you're becoming a hairdresser, a model, or whatever. There's this whole idea that because everybody else is doing something that you can't do it. Everybody else is not going to do it like you. So do it anyway. I don't give a fuck if there are a bunch of people doing the same damn thing. They're not going to do it the way you are doing it. And you're not going to do it the way they are doing it, because you have something special. You have an it factor. You have something about you that's going to make it stand out. So do it anyway. I don't care if you want to do t-shirts, you want to sell socks. I don't care. Whatever you want to do, card games, do it, because you are the it factor. You have what it takes to make that product or service stand out. Do not allow imposter syndrome to get the best of you. A lot of us, I don't want to say all, a lot of us creatives and otherwise struggle with the feeling of like, ooh, am I a fraud? Do I belong to be here? Is my skill level adequate enough? And I'm going to go ahead and say yes. And even if it's not adequate enough yet, it will be once you get the experience. So show up anyway for the experience. If you make mistakes, you're going to learn from them. Trust me, a lot of the things I learned was because I was doing shit the wrong way. Granted, formal training, you can probably skip a lot of that because they'll teach you how to do things right out the gate. I'm not shaming. Get your formal training. Not all of us have had it. Get it. I'm not against it. Go for it. But if you have a natural talent, use it. Move forward. If people want to partake in your services, allow them to, and try not to get in your head so much that you miss opportunities to get better and to be successful. And that's what I got this week, guys. Thank you so much for listening. I really, really appreciate you all. Make sure you guys are all subscribing, rating the show, reposting on your Instagram. Tag me, please. It really helps to get the show out there. And I'll talk to you all very, very soon. Enjoy your week. Go vote.